Chapter 1361, Supreme Pill Recipe. The tens of thousands of kilometers sea area looked calm and peaceful, no shadow nor ghosts could be seen. However, Tang Xiu and Star Tears still kept their vigilance and were very cautious. They didn't rush out from the edge of the forested mountain but kept their auras restrained and conversed in whispers while gazing at the sea. Quickly after, 4 figures appeared on the coastline. And one of them was a rickety old man with a cane that radiated a thick death chi, a sign that he was at the end of his lifespan. The 3 others beside him, aside from a silver-haired old lady, were 2 young men. Dala, Tang Xiu and Star Tears exchanged glances and looked surprised. They both knew who the old man was. Dala was a supreme elder of the Mandala sect and he was 16,000 years old, much older than Star Tears. About 8,000 plus years ago, the old man had broken through to the perfected golden immortal stage, yet he had not been able to advance to the supremacy stage 8 millenniums later. Star Tears whispered, Dala is close to his limit, and the opening of the secret palace with drunken immortal supreme's inheritance is very likely his last chance. If he can obtain such a chance that will help him break through here, his lifespan will double. But if he fails, I'm afraid it won't take many years before he dies and enters the 6 paths of reincarnation to start a new journey in life. He's already a dying lamp, but he can say farewell to his former identity and memory once he enters samsara. Tang Xiu nodded and said, unless a supreme is willing to damage his millennium of cultivation to help him enter the 6 paths of reincarnation, in a lower plane, only then will he be able to retain some bits of his memory. Sigh, there are only a few supremes in the immortal world now, with each and every one of them maintaining their life force and energy in the hopes to cross the tribulation and ascend to godhood. Star Tears sighed. Who would be willing to lose millenniums of cultivation to help him for free? Star Tears and Tang Xiu helplessly watched the Dala's group of 4 as they flew above the sea and then disappeared from their sight. Tang Xiu's eyes gleamed. He stared at the sea for 15 minutes before he spoke all of a sudden. I may have already learned a lot about this secret palace, but this is my first time here, so I have yet to comprehend the situation carefully. It seems that I'll find a new formation array if I enter the sea. Let's set off and dive in. We may be able to see another scene after we enter. Got it. Star Tears nodded slowly. As the duo appeared on the coastline, Tang Xiu used his spiritual sense to spread toward the front. In nearly the blink of an eye, he grabbed Star Tears' hand and quickly passed through an energy shield. Afterward, another world presented itself before them appeared out of nowhere. It was still a calm sea, yet countless lightning bolts struck down from the sky from time to time, with each bolt causing ripples on the sea surface. There were 9 long bridges above the sea surface, however. Each was 100 meters wide and extended toward the bottom of the deep sea. The long ladder-shaped bridge extended upward. Even with their eyesight, Tang Xiu and Star Tears were unable to see the end of these long bridges. It seemed like these long 9 bridges had extended to the distant horizon that reached the heavens. Thousands of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals had come and stood still at the end of the bridgehead. They also saw the backs of roughly 900 golden immortals and perfected golden immortals on the long bridge, as they advanced forward step by step. It's a domain bridge. Tang Xiu sighed as he saw such a scene. From the content of the entire formation array that made this space, he was fully aware of the whole situation. He knew that this was a test, precisely the second test one had to pass to obtain the inheritance. If one could cross this domain bridge, that person would then have the opportunity to enter the floating island and enter the drunken immortal palace. Let's head there. Tang Xiu touched Star Tears' arm and then silently came to a spot near Dala. Although he realized that 3 people around the old man were showing their vigilance towards him, he directly ignored them and intentionally put on a curious look, asking with a smile, elderly senior, may I ask about the situation here? We're kind of bewildered after entering. Why is everyone gathered here? Also, how come some people are walking slowly on the bridge and not just flying directly? Dala turned to look at Tang Xiu with a surprised look. However, the gentle old man didn't scold Tang Xiu for asking and explained with a smiling face instead, "This is a space to test one's potential. There are a total of 90,000 tokens in the whole secret palace, and anyone who gets it can find it. At the end of this bridge is the place where the drunken immortal palace is located. Only by passing this space of potential test will one be able to reach the drunken immortal palace and obtain drunken immortal supreme's inheritance." Tang Xiu intentionally looked surprised. The inheritance of drunken immortal supreme is here? Then, those other places? Those other places are naturally the first test left by drunken immortal supreme, said Dala with a smile. Only after you survive in other places can you find the token and then come here. However, this young friend is really good. You unexpectedly reached this place accidentally without the token's direction. Maybe young friend can obtain a big fortuitous encounter here. Surely you jest, elderly senior, said Tang Xiu modestly. I just came in to join the fun. Besides, I'm only here for treasure hunting and making a little fortune. I don't look forward to getting the legacy of drunken immortal supreme. Dala looked a bit surprised. He had been passing the years for far too long and he was able to distinguish whether someone was telling the truth or not. However, the young man before him was absolutely indifferent to this matter, and it did come from his heart. It was something he never expected, so he carefully observed Tang Xiu and asked, "What's your name, young friend?" "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor," said Tang Xiu with a smile. Dala stared at Tang Xiu with an expression between laughter and tears. He had a good impression of this little fella. So young yet dared to bestow himself the title of Heavenly Emperor at such a young age. He couldn't determine Tang Xiu's cultivation level, but if he were to make a guess, this kid should be a golden immortal at most. However, the purpose of his coming to this place was to get a fortuitous encounter from whatever was left behind by drunken immortal supreme. So, despite his curiosity about Tang Xiu, he shifted his attention to the long bridge again towards those 900 people trying hard to climb the bridge. "Master, the Greenfinch sect seems to have some amazing peerless geniuses." The stout middle-aged man next to Dala suddenly exclaimed. Among those 900 golden immortals and perfected golden immortals, he's able to firmly occupy the first place. That one on the second place is also just 100 meters away. They should be able to snatch the top 3 spots from this third batch of people, right? Indeed. Dala nodded and said, given his aptitude, it would be easy for him to advance to the perfected golden immortal stage if he doesn't die for some period of time, though it's hard to say whether he can break through to the supremacy stage. However, Celestial Fleabane True Monarch in second place is also good enough. Although he's not as dazzling as that Greenfinch sect's peerless genius, he's still a very powerful perfected golden immortal. As far as I know, he should have just broken through to the perfected golden immortal stage in the last millennium, yes? Well, it's about 8 centuries ago, to be precise. The burly man nodded. Among those 900 golden immortals and perfected golden immortals, the number of perfected golden immortals is 120, but Celestial Fleabane True Monarch definitely has the strongest aptitude. However, he never pledged his allegiance to any sect and keeps cultivating by relying on his own constant exploration and hard work, something very difficult to do on the path of immortal cultivation. Dala smiled bitterly in response. Had I not had my background then and kept relying on my hard work to cultivate in its entirety, I would perhaps have broken through the supremacy stage by now, wouldn't I? As Tang Xiu stood beside them and listened to their conversation, he couldn't help but feel a bit of admiration toward this Dala old man. He was clear about the correctness of the statement Dala just said. Immortals who had a smooth ride on their cultivation path were bound to fail to achieve greatness, but instead would end up harming themselves. The immortal cultivation path was not only hard and arduous, but one must also go through hardships and tribulations while comprehending the heavenly Tao and blazing through a bloody path. Only then one would be able to reach the apex to the supremacy stage. For instance, the possessor of his identity in the past. As the young lord of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, he was definitely the very term of the darling of many people. He never knew how high and deep the sky and earth were. In the end, he failed to achieve enlightenment and died right after he ran into a trivial danger, thus his body was then occupied by his soul. Later on, he refused to stay in the shelter that was the Vermilion Bird holy sect and kept striving, fighting, and struggling time and again, making his way out of countless desperate situations, and then eventually becoming a supremacy stage powerhouse. Tang Xiu secretly took a deep breath and quickly took out a jade slip, engraved a certain pill recipe on it, and then secretly sent it to Dala without any trace. Huh? Dala slightly turned his head and looked at Tang Xiu. There was a slight surprise on his aged face, but then, he found that Tang Xiu didn't even look at him but kept focusing on the 900 immortals being tested on the bridge. Immediately after, he sent a wisp of his consciousness into the jade slip. This is... Shocked, his eyes gleamed. He quickly stuffed the jade slip into his interspatial ring and sent a voice transmission to Tang Xiu, "Thank you, immortal friend. It was fate that made us meet here, there's no need for thanks," Tang Xiu replied with a voice transmission. Dala shot a deep look at Tang Xiu before he shifted back to the immortals on the long bridge. However, shock still quaked his heart, and he couldn't calm himself down. This is a supreme pill recipe that will increase the chance of breaking through to the supremacy stage by 30% if a late stage, perfected golden immortal takes it. Everyone knows what kind of mishap can be avoided with such a 30% increase in chance. Originally, I had only 30% of assurance, the exact odds that I can see. I'm aware that it's still far and not enough for me to step on the path of becoming a supreme. But with the supreme pill recipe, my chance to advance to the supremacy stage is increased by up to 60%. 60% is just my limit, but it's enough for me to break through. Even if I can't get the inheritance of drunken immortal supreme in this secret palace, I can be said to have obtained an enormous chance myself. Then again, this grace is so enormous, a very heavy one. Who exactly is he? Dala wanted to ask the young man's identity, but he could tell that the young man had no intention of telling him. He could only helplessly engrave this grace into his heart, waiting until that young man had a need of his assistance in the future to repay this friendship token. "Is there something wrong, master?" The burly man noticed Dala's unusual expression and asked immediately. "No. It's nothing," Dala shook his head. Chapter 1362, Black Zephyr Old Freak. In the following 2 days, Tang Xiu and Star Tears observed the 900 people on the long bridge and completely figured out the circumstances. The space pressure in the long bridge was different and was adjusted according to each immortal's cultivation level, thus forming a unique pressure. For instance, a golden immortal would have to face much less pressure compared to a perfected golden immortal. This magical spatial pressure varied according to each person's cultivation level. So, in the end, it didn't matter whether the person was a golden immortal or a perfected golden immortal, as all would face the same level of pressure. I refused to give up. A golden immortal suddenly coughed a mouthful of blood and his body flew to the back as though he was a snapped kite, and then crashed down under everyone's eyes. The first immortal who was forced down has appeared in the 3rd batch of the bridge climbers. I'm afraid some more will be forced back the next time. A sage-like perfected golden immortal couldn't help but sigh. The golden immortal who got forced back looked ashamed. After crawling up from the bridge floor, he swallowed all the despising look from the onlookers and left quickly. 15 minutes later, another golden immortal also coughed up blood and flew backward before he crashed down to the crowd. The next moment had turned into the realization of the prediction of that sage-like perfected golden immortal, as another golden immortal and some perfected golden immortals were pressed by the spatial gravity on the bridge that forced them to fly back. In the next 4 days, of the 900 immortals on the bridge, only 7 of them were left. The most dazzling genius of the Greenfinch sect was still climbing, albeit facing difficulty as it took him several hours for every step he climbed. Everyone with keen eyes could tell that he had reached his limit, and could very well be forced to return at any time given how his body kept trembling. As expected, the greenfinch sect's peerless genius was forced to fly back and crash down in front of everyone 4 hours later. However, nobody among the several thousands of immortal onlookers looked at him contemptuously. On the contrary, aside from feeling a bit of regretful, all they felt towards him was admiration. Of the 9,999 stairs on the long bridge, he was able to climb up to the 7,320th stair, whereas the second place was only able to reach the 6,900th stair before he was forced to retreat. Of the 1,800 people from the first 2 batches, the best among them was only able to reach 7,250th stair, wasn't it? A perfected golden immortal some 100 meters away from Tang Xiu sighed bitterly and shook his head. His muttering made everyone nod in secret. Time went by and it was already the 10th day that Tang Xiu had arrived here. The 900 immortals of the 3rd batch had all been forced back by the spatial pressure. The best one among them was the genius of Greenfinch sect, meaning that he was an immortal with the best aptitude among the 2,700 immortals from the first 3 batches. Let's get ready. Dala took a deep breath and issued an order to the 3 people around him. Tang Xiu had yet to learn any rules pertaining to ascending the bridge, so he quickly asked, "Senior, all the 900 people have been forced back and returned. Will the 4th batch also require another batch of 900 people to climb up together?" Dala nodded and said, "That's right. Each batch consists of 900 people and is given 18 days to try. If no one is able to reach the end of the bridge within 18 days nor is forced out by the pressure on the bridge, they will be blasted and killed directly. That's why those who can't get through within 18 days can only withdraw voluntarily." Tang Xiu immediately understood and asked again, "Is Senior perhaps preparing to climb the bridge in this 4th batch now?" Dala's expression turned a bit solemn as he sighed. "Hey, this old man is approaching his limit, so I can't waste any chance to snatch any immortal fate that appears. My chance of breaking through to the supremacy stage will be greatly increased if I can get the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme. Immortal friend, you can also come with us." Tang Xiu contemplated for a moment before shaking his head. "I think I'll pass this time. There are many experts waiting for their turn. It's likely that it will be difficult to get some spots in the 4th batch. I'll keep waiting and maybe try my luck in the 5th or 6th batch." "You must think it through, fellow immortal Great Tang," said Dala. "In case someone passes this test a step in advance, that person will be able to enter the Drunken Immortal Palace a step faster. On the path of immortality, one must keep striving forward on his own." Tang Xiu nodded in response. "I understand what you said, but I don't want to try it now. Observing more may award me with better results." "Never mind me, then." Dala no longer persuaded Tang Xiu after seeing his insistence. 6 hours later, figures flickered and moved lightning fast towards the front of the long bridge. As each immortal stepped on the first ladder 100 meters away, their bodies all trembled. Many of them even chose to completely stabilize their stances to adapt to the spatial pressure above, giving up advancing faster and then slowly moving forward. Tang Xiu's gaze wandered over these 900 people and finally landed on Dala's back. Although he didn't feel anything, from his observation, he could tell that the spatial pressure that must be endured by Dala must be enormous given how cautious he was when taking each step forward. Time fleeted by quickly. In the blink of an eye, the 9th day came and the first person who could not bear the spatial pressure on the bridge was forced to fly backward, followed by some more people one after another. "There are 650 people left now." Star Luminous' eyes gleamed and he muttered after he had been summoned back from the heavenly abode artifact. Star Pang immediately added, "There will be a constant stream of people being forced to retreat at this time. However, that Black Zephyr old freak seems to have enormous potential. He has already climbed up to the 7,500th stair and seemingly has yet to reach his limit. Maybe he can challenge up to the 8,000th stair. He can indeed reach the 8,000th stair and may even pass the 9,001, commented Tang Xiu calmly. Pay attention to his steps. Each step he takes may be very slow and take some time, but each is very stable and smooth. Suddenly, Tang Xiu slightly frowned when he saw Dala cough up a mouthful of blood and fly to the back. He immediately let out a wry smile. Dala had not been able to reach the supremacy stage for more than 16,000 years, yet he was still able to reach the 6,320th stair, a rare achievement on its own. "Are you all right?" Tang Xiu paced forward and helped him up while asking. "I thought I could obtain my immortal fate here," said Dala with a bitter smile. "I didn't expect I would fail the test. The test left behind by Drunken Immortal Supreme is really too abnormal. If it wasn't abnormal, how can he select a successor with good aptitude?" Tang Xiu smiled lightly. "If anything, a selected will eventually be able to pass this test given the present trend."
"Yeah,"
Dala nodded. "There's also a chance that nobody can pass this long bridge and arrive outside the Drunken Immortal Palace." "Not really. If that Black Zephyr old freak can force out his full potential, he may be able to pass the long bridge." Dala looked a bit surprised and then quietly nodded. "Black Zephyr old freak? His cultivation speed is indeed very fast. He should be a little over 5,000 years old, yet his cultivation has reached the perfected Golden Immortal stage. With such a cultivation speed, he may be able to advance to the supremacy stage within 10 millenniums." Sure enough, Black Zephyr was really able to reach the 9,000th stair when the fourth batch spent 12 days in trial. Yet, his originally steady and smooth footsteps now seemed to stagger several times, as though he might be sent flying backward at any time. But the man was the only one remaining on the bridge. Dala looked a bit regretful and shook his head with a sigh. "Hey, he does have great aptitude. Pity that this bridge trial is really abnormal. I'm afraid he'll also fail the test." "I don't think so." Tang Xiu stared fixedly at the back of Black Zephyr since he spotted a slight abnormality in the back angle of the man. The moment after, Tang Xiu sent him a voice transmission. "You won't be able to cross the bridge with your current strength. You must try to have a breakthrough. If you can advance to the perfected Golden Immortal mid-stage, your potential will be stimulated further and the next stairs won't pose any difficulty to you." On the stair, Black Zephyr's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect that someone would send him a voice transmission at this very moment. He slowly turned his back and his eyes swept across thousands of people's eyes. His keen eyes then found Tang Xiu, who nodded to him. His eyes then flickered before he turned his back with difficulty. "I have come to this point, so I must keep trying. If what he said is true, then I'll have a much greater chance to inherit the legacy." Black Zephyr took a deep breath and immediately began to circulate his immortal force according to his cultivation technique, frantically trying to break through. For 2 whole days, he didn't attempt to take any step forward. Just when a lot of people began to get impatient, Black Zephyr's body suddenly trembled and an enormous aura suddenly blasted out from him. All of a sudden, the man felt that the crushing spatial pressure lessened. "I succeeded?" Black Zephyr was ecstatic and let out a roar of ecstasy. Then, he turned back and cupped his fists towards Tang Xiu's direction and sent a voice transmission to Tang Xiu's ear. "Thank you." Tang Xiu just smiled slightly and shook his head without replying. The moment after, Black Zephyr continued moving forward, his advance much faster than before. He was able to advance step by step steadily and was finally able not to increase the time he needed to take each step. Heavens! He actually broke through to the mid-stage, perfected Golden Immortal on the bridge? Also, judging from his speed, is the spatial pressure on him after breaking through to the mid-stage still the same as before? How is that possible? Could he be moving forward that easily since his cultivation just advanced? What a freak! He's just a little over 5,000 years old and yet he easily advanced to the perfected Golden Immortal mid-stage. If memory serves, the number of those who reach the perfected Golden Immortal stage around 5,000 years old is very few, right? The difficulty of this bridge trial is likely no longer too difficult for him. Damn, I'm so envious of him. Chapter 1363, Who is the most dazzling? Hearing the chattering of the immortals around him, Dala turned to look at Tang Xiu with a somewhat weird expression and asked with a voice transmission, "Did you just give some kind of instructions to Black Zephyr through a voice transmission?" "I did," Tang Xiu replied with a voice transmission. "But being able to break through under pressure means that Black Zephyr's potential has yet to be fully stimulated." "You're really amazing, fellow immortal," said Dala wryly. "It seems Black Zephyr now owes you an enormous favor." "Black Zephyr doesn't belong to any forces, and he has been exploring his own path in cultivation by his own," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "The hardships and tempering he has gone through are sufficient, thus he can be so dazzling. Being such a man, I just think he deserves to have such a chance." Dala shot a deep look at Tang Xiu and asked, "Where does fellow immortal come from? This old man also owes you a favor, an enormous one. I'd like to know to whom I must pay this grace in the future." Tang Xiu contemplated for a while and then suddenly smiled. "If Senior really wants to pay the favor back, I wish you could help the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect after you've advanced to the supremacy stage. The immortal world is now far from being peaceful and some people's actions are just not to my liking, so I'm giving this advantage to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect." Dala squinted his eyes and nodded slowly after a long while. Then, he transmitted his voice again, "No worries about that, fellow immortal. On the 17th day of the 4th batch's trial, Black Zephyr Old Freak was finally able to reach the 9,999th stair, and was just a step away from crossing the bridge. He must fail to go up." At the moment, more than 90% of the immortal secretly prayed inwardly because once Black Zephyr passed the trial, there would be one more competitor should they be able to pass the trial later. Unfortunately, Black Zephyr disappointed these people. As he took the last step firmly, the huge spatial pressure vanished. Immediately after, he turned around and shot a deep look at Tang Xiu again and sent a voice transmission, "This Black Zephyr will remember this grace. I vow to accept fellow immortal's request in the future." Having said that, he turned and rushed towards the gate of Drunken Immortal Palace opposite the square in front. Dala was not in a hurry to leave since he now had a deep curiosity about Tang Xiu, so he wanted to see how high the ladder Tang Xiu could reach after he stepped on the bridge. "Are you going now?" Dala asked. Tang Xiu pondered for a while and glanced at the 4 people around him before finally nodding. Then, he spoke to them, "The 4th batch trial is up, so we're going up in this 5th batch. Keep in mind that you'll have an easier breakthrough if you can withstand this huge pressure." "Understood." Star Tier's group of 4 nodded. Tang Xiu didn't tell them that he could easily send the 4 of them to the other end of the bridge with his ability, hence bypassing the trial. However, he didn't intend to do so, because this trial was not a bad thing and instead would be very beneficial for them. 6 hours later, many figures flickered and moved lightning fast to the bridge. In nearly a flash, everyone there reached the first stair. Tang Xiu himself didn't try to apply his knowledge on this secret palace's spatial array, since he also wanted to find out about his own potential, so he decided to give this trial a try. If he was finally unable to withstand it, only then he would resort to this method to cross the bridge. He would also help the other 4 even though they were only able to reach the 8,000th stair. "Follow me closely, anti-Star Tiers," ordered Tang Xiu with a voice transmission as he began to advance step by step. Half a day after, Tang Xiu stopped and looked back. Suddenly, his expression turned dull and strange. He found that not only was he ahead in the first place, but he even left the person in the second place some hundreds of stairs below. So easy. Tang Xiu furrowed his brows and looked puzzled. After the hesitation, only then did he decide to advance up to the 6,000th stair and then wait there. After 1 day and a half, Tang had climbed to the 6,000th stair. He had no idea that the thousands of immortals either who had taken the trial or not were shocked by his terrifying performance. Is he still a human? He took only a day and a half, yet he's able to reach the 6,000th stair? Why do I feel like this bridge is just like his own back garden? Where did this guy come from? His speed is too fast. Is he not afraid of advancing too fast and spending all his energy and then being left behind later? What's his cultivation level? Why does it seem like the spatial pressure has no effect on him? What the hell is going on? That's terrifying. This guy is really against heaven. But I've never seen him before. Where did he come from? What a peerless genius. Dala was fully shocked now, including the stout man next to him who was looking with a slack jaw. He didn't expect that the brat who talked to his master before turned out to be this terrifying. After a long while and then saw Tang Xiu did not continue his advance, he gulped and sighed. Master, that great Tang Heavenly Emperor guy is really amazing. At such a young age, yet having so much potential. If he doesn't die prematurely in the future, it's very likely that he'll become supreme later. Sigh, I can't tell whether he can become a supreme, but breaking through to the perfected golden immortal stage is definitely not a problem for him. This young man is very mysterious and very interesting. Although this old man only left the sect for a short time, I have never run into any young man who I can't figure out. The stout man stared blankly. He didn't expect that his master would have such a high evaluation of this great Tang Heavenly Emperor guy. After hesitating for a while, he asked, would you like me to investigate his identity after leaving the secret palace, master? No, Dala shook his head and said, don't arouse his ire. I owe this young man a favor. Pardon. The stout man was bewildered. Dala no longer spoke. Instead, he looked forward to Tang Xiu's performance, expecting him to cross the bridge. He even anticipated Tang Xiu to receive the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme, as he may also get some benefits given his relationship with him. On the bridge. Heroic Sword Venerable's eyes shone coldly when he looked up at Tang Xiu on the 6,000th stair. Originally, he was very confident that he could become the most outstanding and dazzling peerless genius of the 5th batch. But who would have thought that a mysterious young man would suddenly appear and draw all the glory that should belong to him? Being the second place was something Heroic Sword Venerable was very unwilling to have. But when he found that Punk stopped his advance on the 6,000th stair and didn't advance for a long time, he gradually let it go and felt that he would definitely overtake him. It was just a matter of time before he surpassed that guy. The most dazzling peerless genius must be me. Being well known as the most talented genius in the 10,000 years of the Myriad Sword sect, I absolutely must finish the bridge trial first. I must successfully pass this trial and reach the Drunken Immortal Palace. Further, I'll also get the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme, and all the treasures of this entire secret palace will be mine. On the 6th day, Heroic Sword Venerable finally reached the 6,000th stair. He stared deeply at Tang Xiu and immediately spoke proudly, feel free to chase my footsteps if you still have the strength. I'll make you realize that I'm the most dazzling one among the 5th batch bridge trial takers. Having said that, he didn't give Tang Xiu the chance to reply and set foot on the 6,001st stair. Tang Xiu just looked at his back with a sneer. Immediately after, he looked down and saw Star Luminous and Star Peng approaching about 200 stairs away from the 6,001. Sablefiend Scorpio was about 300 stairs away, whereas Star Tears had just reached the 5,000th stair and would perhaps need quite a long while before she reached the 6,001. Suddenly, Tang Xiu saw Star Tears straighten up her stance and smiled, quickening her advance on the stairs all of a sudden. It took her just half a day to reach the 6,000th stair and, at this time, Star Luminous and Star Peng were still several steps away from the 6,000th ladder. I just found something interesting, Star Tears smilingly said after coming to Tang Xiu's side. What interesting thing? Asked Tang Xiu curiously. If my inference is correct, all the immortals who have a breakthrough in the secret palace After withstanding the spatial pressure here are those who have gone through the tempering on their cultivation path in the outside world. Sable Fiend Scorpio is hiding hers, whereas I managed to break through after bearing the tremendous pressure here. You broke through? Asked Tang Shou, surprised.
Yeah.
I just broke through. Star Tears slowly nodded with a smile. Quickly after, Star Luminous and Star Pang reached the 6,000th stair at the same time. But when they thought that they were better than Tang Shou's subordinate, both of them acutely sensed that a figure beside them also stepped on the 6,000th stair. Well, I just started a bit slower, said Sable Fiend Scorpio slowly with a smile. Star Luminous was surprised. Weren't you very slow before? You were quite far from us. Sable Fiend Scorpio glanced at Star Tears and smiled lightly. Well, that just means that my potential is not worse than yours. Alright, everyone, no chatting. Tang Shou slightly smiled and said, we all have reached the 6,000th stair, so we're going to bolt to the 8,000th. If you all can reach the 8,000th stair, then I guarantee you will pass this trial. But if you can't, then don't think about the inheritance of drunken Immortal Supreme. Despite knowing and sensing how arduous and hard it would be, Star Pang's eyes were extremely firm. We've been facing hardships all this while, so we must pass the trial, said Star Luminous in a deep voice. Only by becoming stronger and obtaining the inheritance of drunken Immortal Supreme can we resolve the crisis at home. Your family is in crisis? Tang Shou asked lightly, do you want me to help you again? No need, but thank you, Star Pang and Star Luminous answered at the same time. Although they already guessed that Tang Shou was someone on their side, they still weren't 100% sure, so they directly refused. Chapter 1364, Reaching the Summit. Tang Shou led the way and advanced again. His pace didn't slow down and was even a level faster. Even though he could sense the pressure on him had become slightly bigger, it wasn't that unbearable to him. He then quickly caught up with Heroic Sword Venerable on the 7,000th ladder. How can this be? Heroic Sword Venerable noticed that Tang Shou was catching up and was shocked. Due to the shock, his footing was staggered and he was almost forced back by the enormous oppressive force on the next step. A smile crept up on Tang Shou's mouth and he lightly said, a human must never be too arrogant, for one could have his face be smacked after bragging. You know, wanting to be the leader and the most dazzling man in the 5th batch will only be a dream. With that said, Tang Shou took another step and took over Heroic Sword Venerable. He directly went to the 7,201st stair. Much to the chagrin of Heroic Sword Venerable, he kept his distance farther from the man and it took him only a little over a day to climb up to the 8,000th stair. There, he turned around and looked below. Tang Shou saw Heroic Sword Venerable facing difficulty in advancing. Seeing his furious eyes, he gave the man a middle finger and contemptuously laughed. A pebble wants to compete with a pearl? You really overstretch yourself. Pwah. Heroic Sword Venerable spurted out a mouthful of blood after hearing Tang Shou's taunt. He trembled violently with resentment, knelt on one knee, and then was barely able to stabilize his body. At the bridgehead, thousands of immortals were completely shocked by Tang Shou's performance. After the continuous inquiry among them, they finally found out Tang Shou's name, Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. However, none of them knew where this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor came from, and from what sect or force he belonged to. Did this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor pop out of a stone or something? Just his aptitude and cultivation alone are enough for him to gain fame in the immortal world, right? But why has no one ever heard of this person before? Is this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor his real name? I've never heard of this name before. Could he be a peerless genius secretly groomed by a super sect and now he just recently started adventuring in the immortal world? He's really against the natural order. Had he not stayed too long on the 6,000th stair, he could have already passed the bridge and reached the drunken immortal palace, right? He's so young, I can sense that he's really young. Yet such a young man has such great potential is simply unimaginable. Could he be the one who'll get the inheritance of drunken Immortal Supreme? Awesomely terrifying. He's fast, much faster than the other trial takers. It's like the spatial pressure on the bridge has no effect on him whatsoever. There are quite a lot of talented people in this 5th batch. Aside from that great Tang Heavenly Emperor, there are more than 20 people left on the bridge. That's incredible. Also, that myriad sword sex peerless genius, heroic sword venerable, seems to be on the brink of death. Dala stared at Tang Xiu with a complicated expression. Given his keen eyesight, how could he not be able to tell that Tang Xiu had been advancing forward with ease? He hadn't yet exerted his full strength even under such enormous spatial pressure. The Inner Pill Sect and Limitless Palace will surely be out of luck if this kid grows. He must be related to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, thought Dala inwardly. Next to him, the slack-jawed and shocked stout man muttered, "Master, this great Tang Heavenly Emperor is really amazing. Aside from Black Zephyr Old Freak, no one else seems to be better than him. I have a feeling that he can definitely pass the bridge trial and arrive outside the drunken Immortal Palace." He's going to pass, without a doubt. Dala nodded slowly and said, "However, those 4 around him are similarly powerful. They all have climbed up more than 6,800 ladders, and they seem to be able to persist for a long time. Do you know something about the origin of this great Tang Heavenly Emperor, Master?" asked the stout man. "How come we've never heard of his name until now given his aptitude? Also, those 4 around him, they obviously changed their appearances and auras. Why are they afraid to show their true faces to everyone?" "It's likely they may have some powerful enemies," replied Dala. "Then it will be very likely their enemies will be very unlucky," said the burly man. "Should any one of these 5 grow and break through to the supremacy stage, their might will be outrageously powerful." On the stairway, Starpang's eyes were filled with madness. He had reached his limit withstanding the huge pressure. However, he kept persevering, for that inheritance, for the sect to resolve their impending crisis. Pwa. Right as he climbed the 7,864th stair, he finally couldn't bear the huge pressure anymore and was forced to fly back and then fell heavily on the bridge. "I refuse to give up." Starpang's eyes turned bloodshot. He tightly clenched his fists and punched the ground hard. Star Luminous, who was 3 steps behind him, saw that Starpang was forced back. His eyes were also filled with madness. They were the only ones from their sect who came to the boundless mountain range and entered this secret palace. Should Starpang fail, then he would be the only one left. The pressure he felt inside was bigger than the spatial pressure he felt from the outside. "I must persevere. I must insist. I must keep climbing even if I have to die." Star Luminous gritted his teeth and frantically circulated the immortal force in his body. He had made up his mind to never be forced back by the pressure even if he must die in this trial. He advanced step by step with a trembling body and madness-filled eyes, with every fiber of his muscles cracking violently. Perseverance and insisting to keep moving forward had become his only faith. Buzz. A surging aura suddenly blasted out from Star Luminous. In nearly a flash, he, who nearly had reached his limit under the pressure, suddenly felt that his body now became lighter. A sudden breakthrough. Even in his dream, Star Luminous never imagined that he would break through to the perfected Golden Immortal stage at this moment. It must be noted that he had advanced to the Golden Immortal late stage only 700 years ago. He immediately realized an insight: the heavenly Tao rewards the diligent and those who persevere unremittingly. He felt like crying at the moment. Ever since his Grand Master, Star Cultivation Great Emperor, failed his tribulation and vanished, the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect had to go through bitter tribulations and hardships of being attacked by several factions. Impending dangers and jeopardy were right in front of their door, and many of their people were constantly killed. The sect's resources were gradually depleted, and he had been persevering and supporting the sect through these hardships. Many people in the sect abandoned themselves, resented their incompetence, and even despaired. Yet, he didn't. He shouldered the title of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect's peerless genius, so he kept cultivating all out instead, unleashed everything he got in the battles, and wandered the edge of life and death time and again while constantly accumulating experience. All he relied on was his perseverance, so he still survived to the present. The path is so far and only by persevering one can move forward. Star Luminous took a deep breath and gradually suppressed his excitement. His eyes and resolve became extremely firm. He felt everything was a lot easier when he tried taking another step forward. Quickly after, Star Luminous came to the 8,000th stair. When he looked at Tang Xiu, he could see a relieved and grateful look on his face. Why does he look relieved and grateful? Star Luminous' expression shifted and respectfully said, "Senior Great Tang, did you see me breaking through?" "Of course." Tang Xiu replied with a smile. "You wouldn't have been able to arrive at the 8,000th stair so easily without breaking through to the perfected Golden Immortal stage. The Vermilion Bird Holy Sect is really blessed to have such a peerless genius in you." Star Luminous' expression sharply changed and he stared at Tang Xiu vigilantly in an instant. "You don't have to guard against me," said Tang Xiu with a voice transmission. "What you need to know is that I'm not hostile to you. Otherwise, you and Star Pang would have already died even before entering the secret palace." Star Luminous froze for a while and suddenly sobered up. With an embarrassed face, he awkwardly said, "I apologize, Senior Great Tang." Tang Xiu casually waved and said, "I'm deeply related to your Vermilion Bird Holy Sect. I didn't expect that you could reach this point. All right, let's stop conversing here. Go forward. If your mind is firm enough, I'm sure you won't be troubled by this trial." "Understood." Star Luminous complied curtly and stepped on the 8,001st stair. Quickly after, Star Tears and Sable Fiend Scorpio also came to the 8,000th stair, surpassing Heroic Sword Venerable. However, their distance from the man was only 3 stairs. "Let's keep advancing. Don't be caught up by some idiot lest we hear some stupid bragging from him again," said Tang Xiu while glancing at Heroic Sword Venerable with disdain. "Asshole." Heroic Sword Venerable roared angrily. Tang Xiu straightly ignored him, but Star Tears couldn't suppress her killing intent towards the guy. However, she realized that it was not yet the time to kill Heroic Sword Venerable, so she suppressed her killing intent and followed Tang Xiu up the stairs. On the 16th day, Tang Xiu, Star Tears, Star Luminous, and Sable Fiend Scorpio had passed the bridge trial. When the 4 of them came to the outside of the Drunken Immortal Palace, Black Zephyr Old Freak greeted them quickly. Although he was a bit surprised to see Tang Xiu, he respectfully greeted him, "Thank you, fellow Immortal." "No, there's no need for you to thank me as that was your fortune and chance." Tang Xiu shook his head and smiled slightly. "May I ask whether fellow Immortal has any request for me?" asked Black Zephyr. "Well, recently I met a very talented young man, Star Luminous, a peerless genius from the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect," replied Tang Xiu with a voice transmission. "Coincidentally, he experienced a similar thing like you and broke through to the perfected Golden Immortal stage under the pressure on the bridge. I'm sure you're also aware of the predicament surrounding the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect. If you really want to thank me, please help that sect for me in the future." "Understood." Black Zephyr carefully observed Star Luminous for a while and then nodded silently. Then, he said, "By the way, the 9 immortals who have successfully arrived here are required to activate the 9 stars array. There are 5 of us now, so we need to wait for 4 more people." Chapter 1365, Worthless Lives. On the 18th day, Heroic Sword Venerable finally passed the bridge trial. Of the 900 immortals from the 5th batch, a total of 5 people passed the bridge trial and shocked the thousands of immortals below. Afterward, the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th batch followed. Finally, after the trial of the 9th batch of immortals ended, the last 3 people successfully crossed the bridge, so the number of people outside the Drunken Immortal Palace reached 9. The 9 people were, Black Zephyr Old Freak, Heroic Sword Venerable, Tang Xiu, Star Tears, Sable Fiend Scorpio, Star Luminous, Blackhawk Venerable, Aureate Rosy Cloud Venerable, and Iron Scarless. Everyone, we now have enough people, so we can activate the 9 stars array. Each and every one of us can only rely on our own chance after entering the Drunken Immortal Palace. Who will eventually become the inheritor of Drunken Immortal Supreme? Let's strive and fight for it. Blackhawk Venerable, the one with the highest cultivation level at the perfected Golden Immortal late stage, slowly said. The rest nodded and stood above the 9 nodes of the 9 stars array. As the 9 people injected their immortal force, the 9-star array was immediately activated and the hundreds of meters high gate of the Drunken Immortal Palace slowly opened. Let's enter. The 9 rushed inside in succession and quickly appeared in the interior of the Drunken Immortal Palace. Nearly all of them had bloodshot eyes with greed after seeing a large number of treasures and various cultivation resources inside. Kill. Tang Xiu, Star Tears, Sable Fiend Scorpio, and Star Luminous moved to strike Heroic Sword Venerable at the same time as though they had a prior agreement. In particular, due to the influence of the Rainbow Phantasmagoria ability Tang Xiu just cast, Heroic Sword Venerable was instantly in a bemused state and became an easy target of bombardment from Sable Fiend Scorpio, Star Tears, and Star Luminous. Despite keeping his guard up against Tang Xiu, Heroic Sword Venerable never dreamed that he would be the target of 4 powerhouses at the same time. He was sent flying to the distance as a divine sword finally cleaved his body into halves. The complexions of Black Zephyr Old Freak, Blackhawk Venerable, Aureate Rosy Cloud Venerable, and Iron Scarless changed greatly. Never did it cross their minds that Tang Xiu's group of 4 would actually slay the peerless genius from the Myriad Sword Sect, causing the 4 people to blink to 4 directions. Aside from Black Zephyr, who thought that Tang Xiu wouldn't attack him, the other 3 were deeply wary of the group of 4. You should join us to kill the rest, Black Zephyr. Only after we kill them will we have fewer competitors in snatching this immortal fate. Tang Xiu quickly sent a voice transmission to Black Zephyr. No matter what, Blackhawk, Aureate Rosy Cloud, and Iron Scarless must die here. Black Zephyr took a deep breath and replied with a voice transmission, Aureate Rosy Cloud is the first disciple of Auric Light Island, and I have a deep friendship with her master. Can you spare her? Tang Xiu pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. No problem with me, but she must comply with my request later. What would you like her to do? Asked Black Zephyr. She must never tell a soul about us joining up to kill the enemies, especially the matter of killing Heroic Sword Venerable. Tang Xiu said, I want her to take an immortal oath on this one. I'll talk to her, said Black Zephyr. After a brief communication, Tang Xiu's group of 5 pursued Blackhawk and Iron Scarless. Although Blackhawk was a powerful perfected Golden Immortal, he had to face the encirclement of 5 powerful enemies. Under the influence of the Rainbow Phantasmagoria Realm supernatural ability, he was finally mercilessly slain, whereas Iron Scarless was easily killed since the man was only at the Golden Immortal stage. I'll give up competing for the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme, despite being very unwilling and angry. Aureate Rosy Cloud could finally only choose to compromise in order to survive. She looked at the 5 men with vigilance and spoke helplessly. Black Zephyr Old Freak told me that he has a deep friendship with your master, so we can't kill you, said Tang Xiu. But you must take an immortal oath to never tell another soul what has happened in the Drunken Immortal Palace. Aureate Rosy Cloud looked at Black Zephyr with a strange expression and then took the oath immediately. Well, you're now our friend since you took that vow, said Tang Xiu contentedly. As for the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme and whether you can get it will depend on your own abilities. We won't intervene with you whatsoever. Huh? Aureate Rosy Cloud incredulously said, you mean? I can still compete for the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme? You. That's right, you can. Tang Xiu nodded. As long as you can pass the next trial, we will still congratulate you even if you become the ultimate winner. The unwillingness and anger in Oriat Rosy Cloud's heart instantly vanished and she looked at Tang Xiu with a grateful face. If I were to finally obtain the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme and have this secret palace under my control, I promise you I'll take out half of the wealth here for you. I'll say thanks in advance then. Tang Xiu laughed. Quickly after, Black Zephyr and Oriat Rosy Cloud left in a hurry. This Drunken Immortal Palace was very large and everyone had no idea where the inheritance was placed, so they chose to separate and look for it on their own. Star Luminous took a deep breath and spoke to Tang Xiu, Senior Great Tang, they have left. I will also seek my own immortal fate. If I can finally obtain Drunken Immortal Supreme's inheritance, I'll also take out half of the wealth here for you as a token of my gratitude. Remember my words. You'll have other chances as long as you're still alive. Tang Xiu smiled and waved. Don't lose your life here even if you don't get the inheritance in the end. The future Vermilion Bird Holy Sect needs you. Understood. This junior shall keep your advice in mind. Star Luminous respectfully saluted and then left quickly. Star Tears stared at Star Luminous as he left and sighed. He's a good boy. If he doesn't die prematurely in the future, the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect is hopeful to have another supreme powerhouse one day. The path of the immortals is very far and no one knows what the future holds for any of us, Tang Xiu said. I do look forward to seeing the day when he can become a supreme. Star Tears nodded silently and asked, so, what should I do next? Tang Xiu smiled lightly in response and said, Sable Fiend Scorpio, you may be my subordinate, but I have brought you here, so you can find your own immortal fate. I'll return your soul plate immediately if you can get the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme. I look forward to the day when you can become a supremacy stage powerhouse in the future. Sable Fiend Scorpio froze for a moment, then deep gratitude could be seen in her eyes. She had followed Tang Xiu to the secret palace and, prior to this, she thought that she would only obtain some wealth here to support her cultivation later. Although she had imagined many times that such a chance would happen to her, she thought that Tang Xiu would never let her have this opportunity. However, now she realized that she was completely mistaken. Her master not only had respect for herself, but he also did not treat her as a subordinate or slave, but as someone close to him. He does deserve to be a person to pledge my loyalty to. He saved my life from the convict arena. He would even give me my soul plate back if I obtain the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme. I swear I'll serve and work for him for 5,000 years. This is what I can do to repay him. Sable Fiend Scorpio thought inwardly before choosing a direction and leaving. At present, only Tang Xiu and Star Tears remained. Tang Xiu then smiled and said, anyway, Anti-Star Tears, it would be very difficult for you to advance to the supremacy stage, given your present aptitude. However, you still have me, so it will be easy for you to obtain the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme. Let's head to the Drunken Immortal Spring. Huh? Star Tears was confused and asked, what do you mean? Just follow me and you'll know it later, replied Tang Xiu with a smile. Half a day later, Tang Xiu led Star Tears to the central area of Drunken Immortal Palace, where the Drunken Immortal Spring was located. Along the way, all the restrictions and traps seemed to pose no threat to the two of them. Anti-Star Tears, I've cracked the restriction around the Drunken Immortal Spring. Go accept the inheritance. Whether you can take the entire secret palace under your control, it depends on your fortune. After he said that, Tang Xiu conjured thousands of seas in succession. As a transparent energy shield rose, a half-meter wide and 2-meter high gap was opened and Star Tears directly entered through it. This is the Drunken Immortal Spring where one can get his inheritance? Star Tears fully trusted Tang Xiu. She observed the space inside and felt slightly excited after seeing the spirit spring spray a green liquid a few meters high. Immediately after, she immediately lunged herself into the Drunken Immortal Spring directly. Heavens! This dark green liquid is all life essences? Star Tears could sense the enormous life force that was continuously being injected into her body, causing her appearance to return to her original face. A marvelous change happened to her appearance after the life essence fluid infused into her body, causing her to look much younger and full of life. After the life essence liquid in the drunken immortal spring was absorbed by Star Tears' body, a cluster of golden light at the bottom of the spring instantly wrapped her body, and countless ancient runes turned into powerful torrents that flowed into Star Tears' sea of knowledge. Time ticked by and half a year had passed in the blink of an eye. During these 6 months, Black Zephyr also discovered this area, but Tang Xiu secretly pulled some tricks to adjust the restrictions here, making it difficult for Black Zephyr to step inside. Buzz. At the moment, the entire secret palace was shaken and the complexions of the hundreds of thousands of immortals still alive changed. They didn't understand what exactly happened with the secret palace and couldn't help but have a bad premonition inside their hearts. Out. The moment Star Tears opened her eyes, these hundreds of thousands of immortals were wrapped by an invisible force and were directly expelled from the secret palace. However, there were 2 exceptions, Sable Fiend Scorpio and Star Luminous. The 2 of them appeared directly in front of Tang Xiu with Star Tears' arrangement. What's going on? Sable Fiend Scorpio and Star Luminous exchanged dismayed glances. They only glanced at Tang Xiu and then shifted to Star Tears, who was floating above the drunken immortal spring. Both of them could sense a special energy fluctuation from her that made them palpitated. Your great-grand martial aunt? After seeing Star Tears' face, Star Luminous suddenly knelt in front of her and excitedly cried out. Star Tears smiled in response and sent a stream of energy to hold him up. Then, she lightly said, I didn't expect I'd be recognized by you, Keto. This is great. Star Luminous' eyes were full of tears and he shouted excitedly.